head of thematic investing at BlackRock, I really spend a lot of my time thinking about the future and some of the disruptive changes that are impacting the world and society and the economy and our portfolios around us. Oftentimes, this is about disruptive technologies. Oftentimes, it's about societal changes. But what we found with blockchain and digital assets is that in some ways, this is one of the fastest growing technologies we've seen in the last few years. On the right-hand side of the chart, you can see our adoption curve. This is just looking at how quickly certain assets are adopted by a society. And you can see that blockchain and digital assets are being adopted faster than major revolutions before it, whether that's the internet or whether that's cell phones. And there's a couple of reasons for this. The first reason is just we're living in a more digital economy than ever before. If we're consuming things online, streaming videos, playing video games, buying digital content, it makes sense to have digitally native assets to conduct those transactions, particularly when there's, secondly, and importantly, in a year like this year, where over half the world's population is voting for new leadership, not just the elections in the United States, in Mexico, in India, and the European Union, we're seeing more geopolitical risk than before, and in fact, declining trust in institutions, whether that's trust in government institutions for maintaining peace and order, whether that's trust in central banks in terms of keeping inflation under control. More distrust has exacerbated the need for a global monetary alternative. The third we're seeing is demographic changes, the rise of the millennial and Gen Z generation. Millennials, at least in the United States, are set to inherit trillions of dollars, are entering peak earnings years in their work, and are increasingly playing an important role in the economy. And millennials are very different from previous generations because we, were the first generation to be digitally native, growing up with the internet, growing up with computers. We understand digital better than previous generations, and that means we're more likely to adopt digital currencies. And then finally, what I think has been really important to BlackRock in our journey in the digital asset space has been the maturing of infrastructure in digital assets. We've seen billions of dollars move in venture capital and private equity into digital assets to fund incredible innovation in blockchain. We've seen the regulatory environment evolve to get more constructive around digital assets and how people can buy them. We've seen extremely talented people leave traditional finance to go into DeFi to help lead some of these innovations. And all of this infrastructure has really matured over the last 5 years. So between all of these tailwinds, it's really creating the opportunity for digital assets to gain broader adoption across more investors around the world. With that being said, we're in the early days. 2.9 trillion, it changes every day. Maybe it's slightly higher or slightly lower since we made this slide. But we could have focused thus far our efforts on 2 digital assets, the 2 largest. We feel that between these 2 assets, which represent about 75% of the market cap of the digital asset space, and have some of the most liquidity in the digital asset space, that we can really start to make headway in terms of bringing out accessible vehicles to more investors. Now, what I'm going to talk about...
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher, and you know I come back with that video just to make you think.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
And make sure you join the Patrons. If you're not a part of the Patrons, make sure you're hitting the Cash App. And also, guys, make sure you go like and follow the TikTok. More videos to come. And we have BlackRock speaking about the power of these digital assets. And what have I been telling you time and time again? It's all about the millennials and Generation Z. It's all about the up-and-coming generation. Because there's certain things, I don't care whether you're conscious or not, that the older generations are just not going to do. And the adoption over in the emerging markets is just not by chance. Remember, the NWO moves the sheep by them destroying fiat. By all of this inflation, they're being pushed into the technology of blockchain and stablecoins. And we know the NWO caused the problem, wait for the reaction, and run in with the solution. They printed 80% of all money in existence in 2 years. Yes, you heard that correct, people. They destroyed the fiat so these digital assets could rise. But that's the reason why we hear the drums are getting louder. Because the fact is, every single time we had a major drums are beating. It had an agenda, and that agenda now is the fourth industrial revolution, where the robots, algorithms, and drones take the economy over, pay each other with crypto, and the sheep go inside the metaverse. And now that the technology has been tested and is ready, it's time for them to flip that switch. And we know the big banks and big corporations have been here from the beginning. They just been behind the curtain. But now, since the technology is ready, they're stepping out in the forefront. And remember, the crypto teacher told you. And we have earnings back on the scene. And we have the banks getting ready for Friday. And we know the banks are the biggest what? I'll let you finish that. But they've definitely benefited since 2008. And we know we heard from the FDIC. We're going to be seeing a whole lot more consolidation. Higher for longer is destroying these small and medium-sized banks. And we know eventually that's going to destroy your small and medium-sized businesses, which we're going to have a spike in unemployment. 25 and 26 is going to be a wild ride because we're going to see all these machines get implemented. And remember, the crypto teacher told you. And we have Starboard takes $1 billion stake in Pfizer. And like Paul said, they must know something we don't. And I'm not even going to get into that, but you know what I want to say. And remember, the crypto teacher told you. And we have crypto companies pushing adoption in soccer, better known as football, spending those ad dollars. And if the people see it, they will believe it. It's nothing but programming. And that's what the Roman circus is all about. And remember, the crypto teacher told you. Because he knows, when it comes to the NWO, it's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
Hedge funds were net short banks coming in because they're expecting them to downgrade, fourth quarter net interest income outlooks, right, which doesn't set the table well for 2025. And perhaps this is some positioning cover that we're seeing. But I think that higher for longer is actually going to be tougher for banks in terms of, being able to hit that margin inflection point, and as well as, what happens with valuation. Again, at 11 times earnings for next year, it seems like they're in a little bit of, valuation purgatory, if you will.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think the problem here is that Pfizer really hasn't come around since, making so much money on COVID. And they're banking on the fact that the drug industry is the most profitable industry in the world and has been for the entire 43 years I've been at the Tuck School. And if someone were to try to put some time into it, they could figure out a way to make the company more profitable than it is. And that's not a bad bet. And I think they're actually working with former CEOs and have some inside track on this, which might make it better for them.
Sure, and I think one of the pieces of the reports that we heard was Ian Reed, of course, former CEO of the company, also their former CFO, could be involved as well. But the question that I would ask is, what kind of turnaround and what kind of timeline could investors expect in regard to a real shift in profits, given that this is a company that, as we said, has struggled on finding the right weight loss drug that works. They've made big investments in the cancer space, but some of those bets are not going to pay off if they do at all for many, many years.
Yeah, it's going to be a long play for sure, Andrew. And I think that's the problem, that, if you decide to get into this, you're looking at a very long haul before anything is going to happen. And that seems to present major problems for those trying to invest in Pfizer at this point, for sure.
And so does this make sense as a activist target, if you will?
Doesn't make any sense to me at all. I was surprised to see the news this morning. And I think what we need to look for is maybe they know something we don't know. I mean, I'm not sure what that would be. And this isn't a company that hasn't made a lot of money in the past. So making a bet on the long term could be what they're looking for, and that's not a bad bet.
Premier League is the richest football league in the world, and now it's being flooded with cash from the crypto world. Well, crypto firms have spent around £130 million on deals so far this season. This as they look to replace revenue from the betting industry, which is declining in the wake of tougher regulation. So let's bring in Emily Nicole, Bloomberg crypto and fintech reporter. So this is another story it's a very interesting story. Why are these crypto companies now growing their footprint in football?
Well, if you think about what the landscape for crypto looked like 2 years ago, it was a big boom. We'd have this before we had all the scandals and the collapses that we had then with FTX and Terra. And back then, where people were putting their money was in things like Formula One, those big ticket sponsorship deals. You could sponsor an entire stadium. We have, the Crypto.com Center in LA now instead of the Staples Center. This time around, companies are a bit more cautious. They've learned the lessons from the excess of 2021, 2022, and they're thinking about where can we start getting into sponsorship again, get in front of eyeballs without the big cost, and that's football.
And so are football clubs and also leagues seeking out these deals?
On the one hand, yes, because we've got this gambling regulation coming up. So you've got, there was a whistle-to-whistle ban implemented a few years ago, which means you can't have gambling ads shown between, while a game is live. And then we've also got a deal in the Premier League coming up from mid-2026 where you won't be able to have gambling sponsors in that really expensive front of shirt spot. Mm-hmm. And so clubs are starting to think about how do we replace that revenue, and crypto is kind of coming in, dipping their toes in the water, and you never know, by mid-2026 when those big spots have to come up, they could be ready to spend the big bucks.
So, Emily, how are the clubs approaching some of the risks, of course, associated with crypto?
Yeah, because, on the one hand, everybody thinks crypto is a really risky business. You'd think they'd have to do extra due diligence, bankruptcies, all those kind of things. They come with that extra level of scrutiny. But football's used to this, right? Gambling sponsors have been causing these issues as well over the years. So we've got things like boilerplate clauses that will allow clubs to get rid of a deal if the crypto company was to bring it into disrepute. They could also do things like ask for payments up front rather than spread over the years, so they get kind of more of that satisfaction early on. And that's the kind of things that crypto companies are facing as they enter as a new kind of sponsor into the sport.
So Emily, talk to me a little bit about not every club is actually abandoning some of the gambling deals.
Yeah,
right.
Some clubs in the Premier League are still signing them. We've had a few clubs this season sign new front of shirt spots, even though those are the ones that in 2 seasons will be gone. So there definitely is still like a bit of a hanging on to the past. But crypto companies have been saying things like, we'll spend a little bit here now. We'll see how it goes. We'll see what the big uptick and the results are of doing a deal like this are for us. And then if it goes well, we'll consider spending more money. And you might see them progress from like those smaller spots on the shirt sleeve to that big prime center.
Going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
And so we'll import Chinese-based CBDC technology. So it's going to be CBDC in a box provided to you by the People's Bank of China.
But every stock, every bond, every currency, every commodity, every piece of art, every private business, every piece of real estate will eventually be a token on a blockchain, an entry on a ledger, permanent and immutable. We will have truth instead of trust, and we will save over $7 trillion a year. 6 to 8% of global GDP is wasted by the friction of the trust industry that's necessary when you have dual entry accounting. With triple entry accounting, which is what a blockchain is, we get rid of all of that friction. It's a beautiful future.
Like what you see in China and their social credit scoring systems, right? If we get identity wrong, it could be a tool to enslave humanity. And if we get it right, it could be a tool to liberate humanity. And as an American, I'm obviously rooting for the one that's on the side of freedom.
Bitcoin is an international asset. And also, I do believe the role of crypto is, it's digitizing gold.
I actually believe this technology is going to be very important. Look at it. We have been part of a huge revolution in investing through ETFs. We believe that ETFs will be changing the whole way we invest. Many people still use it as a means, well, people are investing it for indexing. No, the majority of people who are putting money in an ETFs are active investors that are buying exposure. The entire bond market is being transformed as we talk right now. I believe the next generation for markets, the next generation for securities will be tokenization of securities. We will, and if we can have that distributed ledger that we know every beneficial owner, every beneficial seller, we all have our code of who's buying, who's selling, instantaneous settlement. And think about it, it changes the whole ecosystem.
Chinese bank ICBC has been hit by a ransomware attack, and the U.S. Treasury market, as a result of that, has been disrupted. This, according to the Financial Times. We're getting more right now with Bloomberg's Shonali Bassick. Shonali, what do we know?
Listen, we have the Financial Times now reporting that ICBC, one of China's largest banks here, was hit with a ransomware attack. And remember, they're a very significant intermediary in the Treasury market. The SIFMA has told its members that this has been part of the reason here that the system is kind of clogged up, if you will, during that auction that we saw a little bit before. The attack had prevented ICBC, according to the Financial Times, from settling Treasury trades on behalf of other market participants. A large executive at a major bank also telling the paper that such a large party on the fixed income clearing corp creates major concerns, potentially impacting the liquidity of Treasury markets.
Now, it was not just a poor auction. It was absolutely lousy, and you know, when the dealers have to step in to save a treasury auction, that's a rare occurrence. And
Cryptoteacher and the new World Order book, plus the 3 kids books, is time to re-educate. Also, if new to cryptos, Coinbase, Bitrue, Binance, do not forget book links and crypto links are in the description. The stock channel, guys. Don't forget to go like, subscribe, spread everywhere. You have your Kobo, your chip stocks, your banking, your gaming. While everybody's sitting at home, get home stocks, the Seaver, the biotech stocks. And while everybody's at home wishing, they were still getting that free money. What are they doing? Drinking and smoking weed. Don't forget about those stocks, and you have a wonderful day. The most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, you know I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids books. You know I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate, not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, we have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Drama Team save the village. Part 2. King Joshua and Drama Team save New York from COVID Stories 3. Part 3. King Joshua and Drama Team goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.